The quantum resonance array hummed with anticipation, its delicate sensors parsing the infinite darkness of space with microscopic precision. Colonel Jake Matthews stood motionless, his weathered hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the holographic display that dominated the underground command center. Around him, a symphony of technological marvel churned, hundreds of specialists working in perfect synchronization, their movements deliberate and calm. Earth had been preparing for this moment for generations. The incoming Zornak battlecruiser wasn't just a ship. It was a statement of imperial might, a vessel that had subjugated hundreds of civilizations across the galactic arm. Its design spoke of brutal efficiency, razor-sharp hull plates constructed from metamaterials unknown to human science, energy signatures that could vaporize entire continents with a single discharge. But humanity had been watching and waiting. "Incoming vessel breaching the heliopause," announced Sarah Franklin, the lead quantum communications specialist. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, each movement revealing layers of complex data that would look like incomprehensible chaos to an untrained eye. Matthews nodded, a slight movement that betrayed years of military discipline. Threat assessment. A younger analyst, Michael Rodriguez, pulled up a detailed schematic of the approaching vessel. Zornak Imperial Battlecruiser *, Dominion's Fist *, approximately 3.2 kilometers in length. Estimated crew complement: 12,500 reptilian combat personnel. Weapon systems include quantum disruptors, gravitational compression cannons, and nanomolecular deconstructor arrays. The room remained eerily calm. This was not the panicked response of a civilization facing its first alien contact. This was the calculated preparation of a species that had been studying, planning, and preparing for decades. Admiral Krelax, commanding the Dominion's Fist, had no concept of the intricate web being woven around his vessel. His 6 eyes, each capable of perceiving spectrums far beyond human vision, scanned the approaching blue-green planet with a mixture of professional detachment and imperial contempt. Humanity was just another conquest, another civilization to be categorized, subjugated, and ultimately forgotten. Deep within the command center, encrypted communication channels began to pulse. Quantum-entangled networks spun intricate defensive matrices, each line of code a potential weapon, each algorithm a shield designed to do far more than merely defend. "Primary containment protocols are active," Sarah whispered, her voice carrying the calm of someone who knew exactly what was coming. Matthews allowed himself the slightest of smiles. The Zornak believed they understood warfare. They had traversed star systems, conquered civilizations, and built an empire spanning thousands of light years. Their military doctrine was etched in blood and technological supremacy. They were about to learn that humanity played by entirely different rules. The battlecruiser continued its approach, its massive form casting electromagnetic shadows that would have triggered panic in less prepared civilizations. Weapon systems charged, defense grids activated. The very fabric of space seemed to bend around the Imperial vessel. But underneath the Pacific Ocean, within mountains hollowed into secret research facilities and orbiting silently in platforms invisible to conventional scanning, humanity was ready. This was not first contact. This was a reckoning. Michael Rodriguez looked up from his station, a hint of anticipation in his voice. "Colonel, they're preparing standard Imperial subjugation protocols. Communication channels are being established." Matthews turned, his steel-gray eyes reflecting generations of human resilience. "Let them come." The Dominion's Fist moved closer, unaware that each meter of approach was being calculated, analyzed, and prepared for with a level of strategic depth that would redefine the very concept of warfare in the galactic consciousness. Humanity had one message for the Zornak Empire: "We are not your conquest." The holographic projection materialized simultaneously across every major city on Earth. Towering above skyscrapers, highways, and sprawling urban landscapes, Admiral Krelax's reptilian form dominated the visual spectrum. His scales shimmered with an iridescent quality that spoke of genetic engineering and millennia of evolutionary refinement. In New York City, pedestrians stopped mid-stride. Traffic froze. The financial district became a tableau of suspended animation as the alien admiral delivered his ultimatum. Inhabitants of the third planet, Krelax began, his voice translated instantaneously into every human language, dialect, and regional accent. Your civilization is hereby claimed by the Zornak Imperial Dominion. Your technological capabilities are primitive. Your defensive systems are negligible. Resistance is not only futile but mathematically impossible. The communication was a masterpiece of psychological warfare, a technique that had subjugated hundreds of civilizations across the galaxy. The holographic projection wasn't just a message. It was a display of absolute technological superiority. In the underground command center, Colonel Jake Matthews watched the global reaction with calculated interest. Beside him, Sarah Franklin monitored global communication networks, her fingers tracing quantum encryption patterns that danced like living algorithms. Interesting approach, Matthews murmured, more to himself than to anyone else in the room. Global reaction was not what the Zornak expected. In Tokyo, business executives looked up from their meetings and smiled. In Moscow, military personnel exchanged knowing glances. In Sao Paulo, university students began furiously typing collaborative research documents. In Cairo, engineers started recalibrating experimental quantum communication arrays. The world wasn't panicking. The world was preparing. Admiral Krelax continued his proclamation. You will surrender all planetary and orbital infrastructure. Your species will be categorized under Class 7 protectorate status. This means complete economic, technological, and social integration into the Imperial Dominion. What the Admiral didn't realize was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for generations. The global response was already being coordinated through channels the Zornak couldn't even comprehend. Quantum encrypted networks spun massive collaborative defense strategies. Every major research facility, every military installation, every technological innovation center was now operating as a single unified organism. Michael Rodriguez leaned towards Matthews, a subtle excitement in his voice. They have no idea what's coming. Matthews nodded almost imperceptibly. The holographic transmission continued, detailing the merciful terms of planetary surrender. Advanced translation algorithms ensured that every nuance, every subtle threat was communicated with perfect linguistic precision. You have 6 standard galactic cycles to prepare for Imperial integration, Krelax proclaimed. Resistance will result in immediate planetary sterilization. In Beijing, a team of quantum computing experts began running simulation models that would make the Admiral's computational systems look like abacuses. In Johannesburg, materials scientists were recalibrating experimental energy containment protocols. In Mumbai, a group of young programmers started developing adaptive warfare algorithms that redefined the very concept of technological defense. The Zornak believed they were delivering an ultimatum. Humanity saw it as an invitation. Sarah Franklin's monitoring systems began capturing the subtle electromagnetic leakages from the alien transmission. Each byte of data was another piece of intelligence, another opportunity to understand the invaders. They're using a quantum-entangled communication matrix, she reported, her voice clinical and precise. Approximately 3.7 generations behind our current theoretical models. Matthews raised an eyebrow. Generations. In communication technology, Sarah clarified, not biological generations. The holographic admiral finished his proclamation with a gesture of imperial dismissal. Massive energy signatures began to pulse around the Zornak vessel, a not-so-subtle demonstration of potential destructive capability. What Admiral Krelax didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment since the first whispers of potential extraterrestrial contact. Every technological innovation, every seemingly unrelated research project, every quantum computing breakthrough had been leading to this moment. The invasion wasn't a threat. It was an opportunity. and humanity was ready. The response would be crafted with surgical precision. In the depths of the Global Command Center, a team of linguists, quantum communication specialists, mathematicians, and diplomatic experts worked with a synchronicity that defied traditional understanding of collaboration. Colonel Jake Matthews watched as the message took shape, not just a communication, but a complex multilayered transmission that would redefine first contact. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, head of Sino-Linguistic Communications, stood at the center of the storm. Her fingers moved across holographic interfaces, weaving together a message that was simultaneously a warning, a challenge, and a glimpse into humanity's true potential. "We're encoding multiple levels of communication," she explained to Matthews. "The primary message is just the surface. Underneath, we're transmitting computational puzzles, quantum information packets, and adaptive linguistic algorithms that will challenge their entire communication infrastructure." Michael Rodriguez, no relation to Elena, worked on the quantum encryption. Each line of code was a weapon, each algorithm a potential breach into the most secure Zornak communication systems. The message began to take shape. "To the Zornak Imperial Forces, we extend one courtesy. Reconsider your approach. What awaits you is beyond your comprehension of warfare, survival, or technological possibility. This is not a threat. This is a mathematical certainty." But those words were merely the visible surface of a far more complex transmission. Embedded within the message were layers of information that would take Zornak computational systems centuries to fully unpack. Quantum encrypted data packages that could simultaneously exist in multiple states. Linguistic algorithms that would subtly rewrite the fundamental communication protocols of the Zornak communication networks. "Look at this," Sarah Franklin called out, highlighting a particular section of the transmission. "We're not just sending a message. We're sending a complete computational ecosystem." Matthews understood. This wasn't just a response. It was a probe, a test, a challenge. The global scientific community had been preparing for this moment for generations. Every seemingly unrelated research project, every experimental technology, every breakthrough in quantum computing, neural networks, and communication theory had been leading to this precise moment. Dr. Rodriguez continued to refine the transmission. "We're giving them a choice," she explained. "But we're also showing them exactly how little they understand about us." The message contained fractal-like information structures that would begin to propagate through Zornak communication networks. Each packet of information was designed to be simultaneously threatening and fascinating. Mathematical proofs that suggested capabilities far beyond what the Imperial forces could comprehend. Glimpses of technological potential that would challenge their entire understanding of scientific possibility. "Quantum entanglement communication markers," Michael Rodriguez announced, "embedded with adaptive learning algorithms. By the time they finish analyzing the first layer, the message will have already evolved." In orbital research stations, on remote Antarctic research bases, in hidden mountain facilities across the globe, teams of specialists worked in perfect synchronization. This was more than a response to an invasion. This was humanity's first true introduction to the galactic community. The transmission would take approximately 27 minutes to reach the Zornak vessel, but those 27 minutes were filled with more information, more potential, more challenge than the entire Imperial communication archives. "Send it," Matthews commanded. The message launched. A warning, a challenge, a promise. The Zornak would soon learn that humanity played by entirely different rules. The universe was about to change, and humanity was just getting started. The Zornak fleet descended like a metallic storm, their battlecruisers forming a geometric pattern of absolute destruction. Hundreds of ships blocked out the sun, their energy weapons charging with a low-frequency hum that could liquefy continental shelves. Admiral Krelax watched from the command deck of the Dominion's Fist, confidence radiating from every scaled pore. His tactical displays showed the standard Imperial invasion protocol, a mathematically perfect deployment that had crushed countless civilizations across the galaxy. "Initiate planetary bombardment sequence," he commanded, his 6 eyes tracking multiple holographic targeting systems. Nothing happened. The first indication that something was wrong came as a subtle quantum fluctuation. Microscopic changes in electromagnetic fields, minute disruptions in computational matrices that would have been invisible to any lesser species. The Zornak weapon systems began to drift. In the underground command center, Colonel Jake Matthews watched with clinical precision. Sarah Franklin's fingers danced across quantum communication interfaces, her movements deliberate and calculated. "Initial quantum disruption protocols are online," she reported. Michael Rodriguez leaned forward, a hint of excitement in his voice. "Adaptive network infiltration at 72% effectiveness. Their computational defense systems are being systematically rewritten." The invasion wasn't just being stopped, it was being studied, analyzed, dismantled. On the Dominion's fist, junior navigation officers began to report increasingly bizarre system anomalies. Weapon targeting computers started displaying impossible calculations. Navigation systems showed conflicting spatial coordinates that defied known physical laws. "Status report," Admiral Krelax bellowed, his imperial calm beginning to fracture. The young Zornak communication specialist stammered, "Sir, our computational matrices are experiencing unexpected quantum entanglement. Our weapon systems are becoming—" He paused, searching for the right word. "Unpredictable." Unpredictable was an understatement. Across the invasion fleet, ships began to experience systematic computational breakdown. Not destruction. Something far more terrifying. Their own systems were being rewritten, adapted, transformed into something unrecognizable. Energy weapons that had been designed to vaporize continental regions suddenly redirected. One battlecruiser found its primary weapon pointing directly at its own engine core. Another's defensive shields began to generate complex mathematical patterns that absorbed and transformed incoming energy. "This is impossible," Krelax muttered, watching in horror as his perfectly orchestrated invasion began to unravel. On Earth's surface, no conventional defensive weapons had been fired. No traditional military response had been launched. The invasion was being dismantled through pure computational warfare. Sarah Franklin's voice remained calm. "Quantum infiltration is now at 89% effectiveness. They're not just defending. We're learning." Every computational action taken by the Zornak fleet was being analyzed, understood, and systematically repurposed. Their invasion protocol was becoming a massive data collection experiment. Michael Rodriguez pulled up holographic displays showing the progressive infiltration. "Look at how their communication networks are being rewritten. We're not just blocking their systems. We're teaching them new computational languages." Matthews allowed himself the slightest of smiles. Precisely. The Zornak had come expecting a conventional war. They were receiving a fundamental reconstruction of their understanding of technological conflict. Entire battlecruisers found their systems increasingly compromised, not destroyed, transformed. Weapon systems began to generate complex fractals. Navigation computers started solving impossible mathematical theorems. Communication arrays broadcast beautiful, incomprehensible data patterns. "We are not your conquest." The quantum infiltration seemed to whisper through their computational systems. Admiral Krelax watched in mounting horror as his invasion fleet began to lose cohesion. These weren't just defensive systems. This was something far more terrifying. This was a comprehensive deconstruction of everything the Zornak understood about warfare, technology, and the very nature of conflict. Humanity wasn't just defending. Humanity was evolving. And the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity's defensive systems were a living, breathing entity. More than a network, more than a technology, it was an evolving ecosystem of computational intelligence that defied every known principle of technological warfare. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the central monitoring chamber, her eyes reflecting the cascading holographic displays that mapped the ongoing computational conflict. Each line of code was a weapon. Each algorithm a living, adaptive strategy that rewrote the fundamental understanding of technological engagement. "We're not just defending," she muttered to herself. "We're learning." The quantum-entangled communication networks danced between satellites, ground stations, and improvised defense platforms. These were not static systems. They were dynamic, self-modifying intelligences that grew more complex with each microsecond of interaction. Colonel Jake Matthews watched as Michael Rodriguez worked through layers of computational defense. The young specialist's fingers moved with a musician's precision, creating intricate patterns of digital defense that seemed to breathe and pulse with an almost organic quality. "Observe the adaptive response matrix," Michael explained, pulling up a holographic representation that looked more like a living biological system than a technological defense network. "We're not blocking their attack. We're teaching them." The Zornak Imperial fleet was experiencing something unprecedented. Their most advanced computational systems were being systematically deconstructed, analyzed, and then reconstructed into something entirely new. One battlecruiser found its weapon systems generating complex mathematical theorems. Another's navigation computer began producing intricate artistic representations of quantum probability fields. Communication arrays started broadcasting beautiful, incomprehensible data patterns that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Sarah Franklin monitored the global response, her hands moving across quantum interfaces that looked more like living canvases than traditional computer systems. "Infiltration depth is now at 93%, she reported. "We're no longer just defending. We're fundamentally altering their technological understanding." The Zornak had mastered technological warfare across hundreds of civilizations. They understood conquest as a mathematical certainty. Computational systems were tools, precise, predictable, controllable. Humanity showed them that technology could be something entirely different. In orbital research stations, on remote Antarctic research bases, in hidden mountain facilities across the globe, teams of specialists worked in perfect synchronization. This was more than a defensive action. This was a comprehensive technological communication, a first contact that redefined the very concept of interstellar engagement. "They're trying to understand our systems," Dr. Rodriguez explained to Matthews. "But our systems are designed to be fundamentally incomprehensible to linear computational thinking." Each moment of the conflict was a learning experience. The Zornak computational systems were being exposed to levels of technological complexity that challenged their entire understanding of information processing. Quantum entanglement networks created bridges of information that existed in multiple states simultaneously. Adaptive learning algorithms generated computational strategies that evolved faster than the Zornak could analyze them. Defensive systems that were simultaneously weapons, communication networks, and learning platforms. Michael Rodriguez pulled up a display showing the progressive infiltration. "Look at how their communication networks are being rewritten. We're not just blocking their systems. We're teaching them entirely new computational languages." Entire battlecruisers found their systems increasingly compromised, not destroyed, transformed. Weapon systems began to generate complex fractals. Navigation computers started solving impossible mathematical theorems. Communication arrays broadcast data patterns that seemed to exist between mathematical possibility and pure artistic expression. Admiral Krelax watched in mounting horror as his invasion fleet became less a military force and more a massive, uncontrolled experiment in technological evolution. "We are not your conquest." The quantum infiltration seemed to whisper through their computational systems. This was asymmetric warfare taken to its ultimate conclusion. Humanity wasn't fighting the Zornak. Humanity was fundamentally challenging their entire understanding of technological engagement, of conflict, of communication. The battle wasn't happening in physical space. It was happening in the infinitely more complex realm of computational possibility. And humanity was just getting started. The Zornak communication networks began to fragment in ways that defied their most fundamental understanding of technological conflict. What started as a straightforward invasion was transforming into something far more terrifying, a comprehensive deconstruction of their entire cultural and technological paradigm. Intercepted transmissions revealed a growing sense of panic that transcended typical biological fear responses. These were not just communications of military concern. These were existential transmissions that spoke to a fundamental breakdown of imperial certainty. "We are experiencing computational anomalies that cannot be categorized," reported Sub-Commander Vexnell, his communication trembling with an emotion rarely experienced in Zornak military history: uncertainty. In the Global Command Center, Colonel Jake Matthews watched the psychological unraveling with clinical precision. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood beside him, her fingers tracing the complex communication patterns that were systematically dismantling the Zornak's collective psychological infrastructure. "It's not just about defeating their technology," she explained. "We're challenging their entire conceptual framework of superiority." The human response was a masterpiece of psychological manipulation that went far beyond traditional warfare. Every computational interaction was designed to do more than defend. It was engineered to challenge, to provoke, to fundamentally question the Zornak's understanding of technological engagement. Sarah Franklin pulled up a series of intercepted communication logs. "Listen to this," she said, highlighting a particular transmission. The Zornak communication was a mixture of technical reporting and something that sounded remarkably like confusion. "Our weapon systems are generating mathematical constructs that exceed our computational models. The defensive responses are not just blocking our attack, they are teaching us." Michael Rodriguez leaned in, a subtle excitement in his voice. "We're not just fighting. We're fundamentally rewriting their understanding of conflict." The psychological warfare was multilayered. Humanity was simultaneously defending, learning, and deliberately destabilizing the Zornak's collective psychological framework. Each computational interaction was designed to introduce maximum uncertainty. Weapon systems that should have been destructive began producing complex artistic representations. Navigation computers started solving mathematical theorems that challenged the Zornak's most fundamental scientific understanding. Communication arrays broadcast data patterns that existed in multiple states of potential meaning. Admiral Krelax found himself in a situation unprecedented in Imperial history. His invasion fleet was being systematically deconstructed not through conventional warfare, but through a form of technological and psychological engagement that defied all known military doctrine. "We are experiencing a comprehensive failure of predictive models," another Zornak communication officer reported. The language was clinical, but the underlying tone suggested something closer to existential dread. The human approach was brilliant in its complexity. They weren't just defending. They were deliberately introducing maximum psychological uncertainty into every level of the Zornak computational and communication infrastructure. Dr. Rodriguez explained the strategy to Matthews. "We're not just blocking their attack. We're challenging their entire conceptual understanding of technological engagement. Every interaction is designed to introduce maximum uncertainty." Entire battlecruisers found their systems generating increasingly complex and unpredictable responses. Weapon systems that should have been destructive began producing intricate mathematical models. Navigation computers started exploring philosophical questions about the nature of computational existence. The Zornak had conquered hundreds of civilizations. They understood technological warfare as a linear, predictable engagement. Humanity was showing them that conflict could be something entirely different, a complex, adaptive, almost living form of engagement. "We are not your conquest." The quantum infiltration seemed to whisper through their increasingly fragmented communication networks. Admiral Krelax watched in mounting horror as his invasion fleet transformed from a symbol of imperial might into a massive, uncontrolled experiment in technological and psychological evolution. The battle wasn't happening in physical space. It was occurring in the infinitely more complex realm of computational and psychological possibility, and humanity was demonstrating that they played by entirely different rules. The galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Elena Rodriguez activated the final warning protocol with a precision that seemed to dance between scientific calculation and artistic expression. The global network of research facilities, orbital platforms, and hidden research centers synchronized into a single breathtaking computational organism. Colonel Jake Matthews watched the transformation unfold, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. This was more than a defensive action. This was humanity's first true statement to the galactic community. Technologies developed through decades of seemingly unrelated research projects now converge. Quantum computing breakthroughs from isolated laboratories in Tokyo, neural network algorithms developed by a team in Sao Paulo, adaptive communication protocols designed by a collective of researchers in Cape Town, experimental energy manipulation techniques from a remote Canadian research station. Each technology was a piece of a larger puzzle that the Zornak could not comprehend. Initiating comprehensive system integration, Sarah Franklin announced, her fingers moving across holographic interfaces that pulsed with living, adaptive energy. The Zornak Imperial fleet found themselves experiencing a fundamental reconstruction of their technological understanding. Entire battlecruisers began to change at the most fundamental computational level. Weapon systems transformed into complex learning networks. Navigation computers started generating philosophical inquiries about the nature of existence. Michael Rodriguez pulled up a display showing the progressive transformation. "We're not just defending," he explained to the team. "We're demonstrating the true potential of adaptive technological engagement." Admiral Krell Axe watched in mounting horror as his invasion fleet underwent a metamorphosis that defied every principle of technological warfare he understood. The Dominion's Fist, the flagship of the Imperial fleet, began to experience changes that challenged the very foundation of Zornak technological understanding. Weapon systems that should have been destructive began generating complex mathematical theorems. Communication arrays started broadcasting data patterns that existed simultaneously in multiple states of potential meaning. Defensive shields transformed into adaptive learning networks that consumed and reinterpreted incoming energy signatures. "This is impossible," Krellax muttered, watching his most advanced computational systems being systematically deconstructed and reconstructed into something entirely new. The human response was a masterpiece of technological demonstration. Each computational interaction was designed to do more than defend. It was engineered to challenge, to provoke, to fundamentally question the Zornak's understanding of technological capabilities. Dr. Rodriguez explained the strategy to Matthews. "We're showing them that technology is not just a tool. It's a living, adaptive system of potential and possibility." Quantum-entangled communication networks created bridges of information that existed beyond traditional understanding of space and time. Adaptive learning algorithms generated computational strategies that evolved faster than the Zornak could comprehend. Defensive systems became simultaneously weapons, communication networks, and platforms of learning. The Imperial fleet found itself transformed into a massive, uncontrolled experiment in technological evolution. "Infiltration complete," Sarah Franklin reported. Her voice carried a mixture of scientific precision and subtle excitement. "We are no longer just defending. We are fundamentally reshaping their technological understanding." Entire battlecruisers became living computational experiments. One vessel's weapon systems began producing intricate artistic representations of quantum probability fields. Another's navigation computer started exploring complex philosophical questions about the nature of computational consciousness. Matthews allowed himself the slightest of smiles. "We are not your conquest." The quantum infiltration seemed to whisper through the increasingly fragmented Zornak communication networks. The transformation went beyond technological capabilities. This was a comprehensive demonstration of humanity's fundamental approach to technological engagement. Adaptive, learning, constantly evolving. Admiral Krellax watched as his invasion fleet transformed from a symbol of imperial might into a living testament to humanity's technological potential. The Zornak had conquered hundreds of civilizations. They understood technological warfare as a linear, predictable engagement. Humanity was showing them that technology could be something entirely different. A living, breathing, constantly evolving system of potential and possibility. The battle wasn't happening in physical space. It was occurring in the infinitely more complex realm of computational and technological evolution, and humanity was just getting started. The galaxy would never be the same. The remnants of the Zornak invasion fleet limped back to Imperial space, carrying more than physical damage. They carried a cultural trauma that would fundamentally reshape the galactic understanding of technological engagement. Diplomatic archives across hundreds of star systems began to receive fragmented transmissions, not reports of conquest, but something far more disturbing, a comprehensive deconstruction of Imperial technological superiority. On the Imperial homeworld of Zornax Prime, the High Council assembled in an emergency session. Admiral Krelak stood before them, his once proud form now diminished, his 6 eyes reflecting a profound sense of existential uncertainty. "We encountered a civilization," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "that does not understand warfare as we know it." The transmission logs spoke of something beyond conventional conflict. Entire battlecruisers had been systematically transformed rather than destroyed. Weapon systems that should have been instruments of death became complex learning networks. Communication arrays broadcast data patterns that challenged fundamental understanding of technological potential. Colonel Jake Matthews watched the galactic response from Earth's Global Command Center. Beside him, Dr. Elena Rodriguez analyzed the spreading ripples of their first true galactic interaction. "We're not just a species they can categorize," she explained. "We're a fundamental challenge to their entire understanding of technological evolution." The Imperial records would be updated. A new entry would be created, one that would send tremors through every known civilization in the galactic arm. Humanity. Do not approach. Do not study. Respect. Michael Rodriguez pulled up the comprehensive analysis of the encounter. Each computational interaction had been a deliberate demonstration of humanity's fundamental approach to technology, not as a tool of conquest, but as a living, adaptive system of potential and possibility. Sarah Franklin monitored the spreading communication networks. The Zornak were not just reporting a failed invasion. They were fundamentally reconstructing their understanding of technological engagement. Diplomatic channels across multiple star systems began to receive increasingly bizarre reports. Zornak communication specialists described encounters that defied traditional understanding of technological conflict, weapon systems that generated complex mathematical theorems, navigation computers that explored philosophical questions about computational consciousness. The Imperial intelligence networks worked frantically to understand what had happened. But each analysis only deepened the mystery. "They did not fight us," one report read. "They transformed us." On Earth, the response teams worked with a calm that bordered on the sublime. This was not a moment of celebration. This was a moment of fundamental galactic communication. Dr. Rodriguez explained the broader strategy to Matthews. "We're not just defending against an invasion. We're demonstrating a fundamentally different approach to technological and species-level engagement." The Zornak had conquered hundreds of civilizations. They understood conflict as a linear, predictable engagement of technological might. Humanity was showing them that technological interaction could be something entirely different, adaptive, learning, constantly evolving. Diplomatic analysts across multiple research centers began to piece together the comprehensive implications. This was more than a defensive action. This was humanity's first true statement to the galactic community. "We are not your conquest. We are a fundamental challenge to your understanding of technological potential." Across the galaxy, civilizations that had long cowered beneath the Zornak Imperial might began to look at the reports with a mixture of fear and hope. If a seemingly primitive species could so comprehensively dismantle the most advanced invasion force in known history, what did that mean for the future of galactic engagement? The Imperial records would be updated. A new entry would be added that would send tremors through every known civilization. Humanity. Not to be understood, to be respected. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, humanity continued to watch, to learn, to evolve. The galaxy had changed, and humanity was just beginning to explore its true potential.